Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shakedown podcast. With me as always, my brethren, my right honourable colleagues, the one that they call the A-side, Shazino, and the one they call Sir Baxley. How are we doing, gents? It doesn't matter how you're doing because there are very many F1 threads at which we need to pull. First up on the docket, Lewis Hamilton has said that as at the Brazilian Grand Prix, he meant those words that potentially he could have left and gone away, gone on a sabbatical if he's not already on a sabbatical until he joins the red team Scuderia Ferrari in 2025. So Baxley, to that, sir, you respond how?
It's definitely shocking to hear him say that. I mean, it was an odd comment at the time, and everyone was kind of left scratching their head, kind of going, what's he going on about? Is he, is he retiring? Is that it? Is he going to retire or what?" It was a weird comment, and then, but I actually also really respect him for coming out and being really honest about it and just saying, yeah, I wanted to go away for 3 races. I just wanted to pack it in. The season's been crap, you know, it's been difficult, and yeah, I think he was just fed up, and it was a heat of the moment thing. But I think part of the reason why Lewis endears himself so much to people is the fact that he does speak the truth, and he just come out and says just is raw, open, honest, wears his heart on his sleeve when he needs to, and I thought it was really quite refreshing of him to do that.
Oof. So Baxley, how do I top that? All right, let me tell you where I am. Do you remember a couple of years ago where Lewis had a nightmare of a first lap at Barcelona and then wanted to park it up, and then instantly all the Sir Lewis Hamilton naysayers, one of which I can be at times, said, like, what are you doing, Sir Lewis? Why are you waving the white flag? I've heard several of my mates, my F1 friends, say similar things about this, that if he's the GOAT, 7-time champion settings, that they don't want to hear that you want in your GOAT of F1 or any other sporting endeavour to have that never say die attitude. Chazino, what do you think about that, sir?
I would say that it's exactly the criticism that has been leveled at Lando Norris the entire season this season. And to then say, oh, it's refreshing to hear Lewis Hamilton say it is a little bit disingenuous. Um, yeah, I mean, look, Lewis has achieved a huge amount. And I still think he's the greatest that's ever stuck his bum in a Formula One car. But yeah, when you hear it, it's not a particularly lovely thing to hear. I mean, I have to say, even in Spain 22, when he made that comment, I was a little bit like,
I didn't
oh,
like
yeah,
it.
I don't really like
I
it.
didn't
And
like it
actually,
at all.
Cameron, I've been going back and watching like the 2018 season now, and everyone complains, I think, about like a lot of what different drivers say on the radio, why they're saying this, why can't they just be nicer to their race engineer, blah 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 blah. I get that, I get it, but Lewis's comments tend to have a very similar tone. They tend to be quite downbeat and like this is the worst situation I can possibly be in, and it can't get any better. Um, I think, I mean, in general, I don't mind them. I didn't mind them too much at that time because immediately, like 4 laps later, he'd have set fastest lap and was on his way to finishing on the podium. It's just that Brazil didn't really have a counter. I hope it somehow means that the upcoming triple header, he's going to suddenly be like back at his bombastic best and like out qualifying George Russell by 0.4 of a second and like winning the race by 20 seconds. I don't know, but yeah, it hits a bit harder this time because you know that in the last 3 races, realistically, doesn't have the wherewithal in himself at the moment or the car to really make amends for that statement.
Excuse me, Sir Shez. Are you alluding to the fact that this might be the harbinger of Lewis Hamilton's career apocalypse?
No,
We argued about this not
no,
long.
no, 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 no.
Fine. It
I'm not
sounded
saying that.
like you were for a
No, only
second.
for the last 3 races. I think I think this is the closest I've ever seen to a Formula One driver, especially Lewis Hamilton, both admitting and practicing checking it out. Like he's just not in it at the moment.
His eyes are firmly fixed on
the red door.
Yeah.
100%. And if he gets a great result, I think what you'll see is like at Silverstone, if there's a sniff of a good result, suddenly it's like a light switch and he's suddenly back on it again.
Go on and let's talk about this, Shez, because again, like a lot of people are talking about the GOAT argument. Max Verstappen's fans are like, but it's slam dunk now. After this season, what Max has done in a car that for at least half of the season has been nowhere near the quickest on the grid, again, puts him like slam dunk case, 100% in the conversation, if not the GOAT beyond reasonable doubt. Of Lewis Hamilton, people will say, well, he hasn't had the bloody car underneath him. He hasn't had the car. Like, what do you expect him to do? 39, soon to be 40 years old. Like, what is he going to do? And I'm not sure. I don't know, Shez. I don't know, bro. It's techie.
So I don't understand why the 39, soon to be 40, always has to be thrown in there.
Because it has to be, bro. Because Father Time is undefeated, undisputed.
Yeah,
it's a matter of time.
Of when? No, it doesn't mean it's happened now, though.
Well, see, all right then, Shez. Let's have the conversation. You've drawn me out, sir. Look, on the back of everything, like I like to analyze my evidence holistically. Listen to everything that you've just said, right? The tone is like, okay, so Lewis speaks, he shoots from the hip inside the car, right? Like he always like undersells it and, oh, my tyres, Bono, they're gone, and then all of a sudden goes purple. That's always been a Lewis Hamilton trait. But now, at the age of 39, soon to be 40 years old, he's getting destroyed, quite frankly, for want of a better word, by George Russell of Kings Lynn, Norfolk, both in quali and in the bloody race. Normalised for Silverstone, normalised for Spa-Francorchamps, and the delta in the championship between the two would be a lot more than it is. I don't care what Lewis Hamilton fans say, what Mama Cameron, Colt LH fundamentalists will say. If that's Sir Lewis in his prime, it's not happening. Maybe George beats him, but never to that extent, never in life. So anybody that wants to say, oh, well, age isn't a thing and Lewis is still in his prime, I think, again, Shez, are doing Lewis Hamilton a disrespect as an F1 peddler. No way in hell does George nail a prime Sir Lewis Hamilton. No chance. No, not the Lewis Hamilton that I know. So again, it's a conversation. Maybe he's not. I'm not saying that Lewis is gone, and Silverstone tells us that, right? But it's a conversation that we need to have. I think something's going on for him to be talking like that, Shez.
Yeah, I think he's upset at Mercedes. But look, anecdotal evidence maybe. But listen to this one, right? Austrian Grand Prix 2018. I have to say it's the last but one race I watched of the 2018 season, and two Mercedes on the front row. Who was on pole? Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah, which
what then happens, right? Is they Valtteri pulls it off the road. The VSC, everyone pits other than Lewis, right? This is the race where you had that famous James Vowles, I'm sorry, I've lost you the race, but we still think you can win. What did Lewis do after that message? Complained a bit more and didn't go any further forwards. But that season, I would argue, was Lewis Hamilton at his absolute prime. I thought that was an unbelievable season from him, because the 2018 season. But the fact that he still had those moments in the greatest season I think he has driven, second best season he's ever driven. I'm not going to tell you what my favorite season is of his is, but the fact that those moments can happen, but he can then bounce back and have unbelievable performances like Hockenheim that season or Brazil that season. You know, it means that for me, this is a prolonged problem that's happened in a very specific situation. He's not had a car this bad for this long. And actually, what you're doing is analysing one season. What about 22 and 23?
Yeah, well, maybe you're right, bruv. Maybe it's just a microcosm, an anomaly of a circumstance. Baxty, chime in on this chap. Buying or selling that Lewis Hamilton has seen Yeah, or his best days even are behind him now at 39 years old.
I mean, I certainly think he's past his prime, but I've always said that his prime is certainly the highest I've ever seen, and I would maybe counter that it's probably higher than any ceiling we've ever seen in the sport. And for me, I think it's sort of started around 2017, but it really hit its peak in 18, 19, 20. I think in those 3 seasons, he was simply untouchable. Doesn't matter who is in that other Mercedes or who's in a decent Ferrari in those 2 seasons, he was just on another level. Um, and so he's definitely past his prime, but he's still got it. I mean, you don't win in Silverstone the way he did and not be past your best. I think I said this a few weeks ago that I am waiting until I see him in that Ferrari before I make a full judgment, because how much of his issues now just generally because he can't get on top of that Mercedes with the lack of rear grip, whereas we know the Ferrari has good rear grip, and if he gets into that Ferrari and gets on top of it and better rear grip than the Merc shares, you know, with a better rear gripped car, and then he gets on top of it and he starts delivering results again, then we're like, okay, so he isn't okay. He may not be at his absolute peak, but he's still operating at a ridiculously high level. But if he still has the same struggles in that Ferrari next year, then we have to have a very different conversation. But I'm reserving judgment until I see him in that Ferrari.
Yeah, I tell you what this feels like, chaps. And again, final point from me on this. This feels like when Ted Kravitz was saying that he thinks there's fundamental flaws with the W13 pod concept. And Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes fans around the world said to me, when I echoed the thoughts of Ted Kravitz, who's infinitely more knowledgeable and well versed on these topics than me, everybody turned around and said, Cameron, what are you talking about? Have faith, which of course is the belief in something without evidence. What are you talking about? It's going to be a rocket ship, they said. And then all of a sudden, like, next year came, and what happened to the W13? I think we're seeing evidence that we should be paying attention to in real time. But like you said, Baxter, let's wait and see what happens next year. I hope Lewis Hamilton makes a mug out of me and shoves the unprecedented 8th World Drivers' Championship right down my throat. But I digress, chaps. Should we talk about GPDA versus FIA? How are we here? George Russell has come out and said that he's surprised that they weren't notified, that a lot of the drivers are fed up. Charles Leclerc has come out and said that he wasn't made aware of the sacking of Niels Wittich. Eddie Jordan has said that it's absolute bull feathers, that the racing directors, they don't know what they're doing, that they should get a test before they're eligible to even apply for such an important role as the race director of the FIA. Baxter, let me pitch the question at you this way. What do the FIA need to do to right this ship? Because it feels like they're genuinely up SH1T Creek right now.
So first things first, don't re-elect Mohammed Ben Sulayem as your president whenever that comes available, because the guy's a walking disaster zone.
But that might be a thing, Baxter. You know that.
But apparently he's running unopposed at this current moment in time.
God.
So
what are we doing?
So no one's wanting to go near that. Okay, fine. So if he's going to remain, he needs to actually listen to the drivers when they talk to him. George Russell said we can have a meeting with him, but he doesn't action what we say in the meetings. Well, he needs to start doing that. But his ego and his arrogance won't allow him to do that. And it seems to me that he has decided to blame the people underneath him for problems that are fundamentally of his own doing. The whole swearing thing, that came from him. But Niels Wittich is now carrying the can for it, clearly, judging from what George Russell said in the press conference overnight, basically saying, it's, they weren't happy with some of the things that Niels Wittich was doing, but that's probably come from on high. He's just doing his job. He's been told to do something. He's done it. The drivers have pushed back. Oh, well, it's your fault. Off you go. Really? It is absolutely ludicrous that, I mean, we are on the path right now to open warfare between the governing body and the drivers. And I mean, we haven't seen that since what, the 80s? maybe later. I mean, I remember the strike that never happened, you know.
Mm.
And then there was, I mean, the closest we got to it was Saudi 22 when they had that big overnight well, not
Oh
well,
my
late into the
goodness.
night meeting because there'd
Oh,
been the missile attack not far from the track, and we don't quite know what happened, but we did see a very grumpy Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen walk out the room, and
don't we know what happened backstage? I thought they were all held hostage, told like, listen,
well,
you
yeah,
can go, chaps, but good luck getting out the airport. You know what I mean? That's
well, yeah, there was that, but that's rumor. We obviously, I'd love to have been a fly in the wall for that meeting, but
I thought that was I thought was that was the officially the generally accepted version of events, because it had happened before with WWE, very
it
similar.
is probably true. It is probably true,
Yeah,
but like
I think we can just accept it at
for
this point.
for the lawyers amongst us, I'm just
Allegedly. Go on, talk to me about this, Shez. How did they fix for this chap? Did they need to get rid of it? And you know what, Baxter brings up a good point that people are talking like Mohammed Ben Sulayem will only be here in role up until 2025, December of. But that, ladies and gentlemen, probably isn't true. He might extend his tenure, right, Shez?
Yeah, because uh, the election of the FIA president isn't down to just F1 fans or F1 people particularly. It's down to racing authorities around the world, and he has a lot of support where it counts in Africa and in the Middle East. They all absolutely love him. And you also have to remember that the FIA's job isn't just to administer Formula One. They also have to cover a whole raft of other motorsports, and they're in charge of looking after road safety as well. I have to say, my knowledge of what he has done for road safety is fairly minimal. Maybe he has done a huge amount and we just don't know about it. But I somehow doubt it. I think for those reasons, though, it's although F1 is the most conspicuous thing on the agenda, um, it's not the only thing, and there are other reasons why he would get voted in. And the fact that, as you say, he's running unopposed means that it's probably not going to make any difference who runs against him anyway. What I do want to say though is listening to George's comments in the press conference, it felt a lot like some of the stuff that I go through at work. You know, you want a new photocopier, but like, you know, the manager will say, "All right, cool. I'll listen to you, and I agree. You definitely need a new photocopier," but it never happens, and that it just seems like a middle management war happening, but just with very rich people. Go on.
yeah. The issue is here that this is the head of a governing body, going up against probably the 20 most important assets the FIA have. Because I mean,
Oh yeah.
Formula One is the premier class. You know, it's the blue ribbon event. It's, you know, your Olympic 100-meter final, but over the course of a year. And so when the 20 guys who have been contracted to race in that series are turning around and going, "What the hell's going on here? Just treat us like adults." And you've got
Mm.
a former four-time world champion also, you know, helping behind the scenes and still massively involved with the GPDA. You know,
Oh
that's
yeah.
going to carry weight. People
I,
are going to listen.
oh yeah. I don't disagree with that. All I'm saying is this is a classic. This is classic upper management behavior, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
This is the FIA president saying, I'm the guy in charge, and you know my problems are bigger than yours. I'm going to impose what I want on you. You're just going to have to deal with it, despite what they're, you know, despite vocal protestations. It doesn't seem to make any difference.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I've said this to you guys before, I think offline and on spaces as well, is to say that I think the FIA has an F1 problem that is unique in that I've spoken to, you know, mutual friends who watch WEC, they watch Formula E, they watch the Rally Championships that the FIA are all that run as well. they don't have the same level of problem. You don't hear of the FIA being this massive pain in the arse in those series. It is a unique problem to Formula One, and I feel like Ben Sulayem likes to impose himself on Formula One. He wants to be in charge, but that's not the nature of the deal. Like Stefano Domenicali is in charge, and Liberty are in charge, and you guys just do the, you do the race steward. You kind of lease the rights to them.
They provide a service, Baxter, and this is what gets on my nerves.
That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah. They procure the FOM procures a service off of the FIA, and they need to move accordingly, right? Surely I pine for the days of a silent partner in Jean Todt that epitomised competence. He didn't want to be front and centre, the Beyonce to the drivers, Lando Norris and Maximilian Verstappen's Kelly Rowland. What are we doing? It's shameful, it's nonsense, and that's why so many FIA senior employees keep leaving the organisation, because the dude is too big for his boots, doesn't even understand nor seek to execute his job title. That's not your remit, Mohammed Ben Sulayem. It's not to be next to the drivers each and every single time. Do your job, Belichick settings, like understand how to institute for the rules consistently across 24 races on the calendar, across 20 participants, surely. And until you do that, I don't want to see or hear from him, chaps. I'm done. It's too much now. To say that they don't even have a FIA compliance officer, that they sack him without the prior authorization of the FIA Senate. Forget instituting rules in $1 billion sport. They can't even adhere to the things as set for them. They can't even adhere to their own rules as far as the hiring and chaps, I'm done. Can we talk about Lando Norris quickly? Because he said some things at the press conference, and it made me question him, chaps. Again, he has been Mr. Glass half empty all season long. But the juxtaposition is that he's also been bloody brilliant. He's put 30 seconds on Max Verstappen at the Dutch Grand Prix, for Pete's sake. You can't do that and be a slouch, right? So I'm trying to square this Lando Norris circle and understand whether at some point, Shez, Lando Norris will have the minerals and mental fortitude requisite to challenge a Max Verstappen and or a Sir Lewis Hamilton over the course of a 24 race championship.
Or is there just a reality that there are some drivers that are up here and some drivers that are just a little bit below that? And that's perfectly acceptable, but
Shez, I don't think sorry to interrupt you, bro, but I don't think your characterization is all the way correct. It's not like Max is, bro. You can't say that Max is here and Lando is there. If Lando put 30 seconds, okay, so he's got a better car, cool, but yeah,
surely that comes into it.
No, of course it does. You've got to factor it into your characterizations, but yeah, and still Lando races with Max Verstappen. He put 30 seconds on Max Verstappen. And if you do the F1 maths, and this is that must mean that Lando has something. You can't say that he can't race and that he's slow, because he's not. He's rapid. So I can't even, do you know what I mean? I feel like it's too black and white to say Max is there and Lando is here. There's something that Lando's missing. But that's a question that I'm asking you, Shez. What is it that Lando's missing to where he can execute on his not insubstantial potential?
But I think that's the problem. The premise here is that pace is everything. And I would say that it is not. It's only part of what makes a Formula One driver as great as they are. Like, you look at Alain Prost, like, he was never quite on the same level pace-wise as Ayrton Senna, and yet he's still mentioned in the same breath, right? There is more to the game that Lando hasn't demonstrated so far, and the most obvious demonstration of that is that when his car is substantially quicker than his rivals, yes, he can drive off and drive to the potential of that car and be 30 seconds up the road. But you throw any kind of proviso into that, a tire issue, a safety car, the car is only marginally quicker, or you throw another rival into it, and suddenly Lando doesn't win the race. Why does that happen every single time? Because when I'm talking about Max being up here and Lando being not quite there, it's because of the qualities that, and I think all the contenders in that GOAT conversation have slightly different attributes that put them there. But Max's one is that it doesn't matter what happens, he will always bring the absolute maximum and maximize everything that he has at his disposal, apart from Baku. I don't know why he didn't at Baku. That's the only place he didn't. But Lando just hasn't done that. And I also take the argument, sorry to interrupt, because I'm sure this will come up, that, oh, well, this is Lando's first ever season gunning for a world championship. I just don't see that as a valid argument. Like Max had 2017, 18, 19, 20, where he was not in championship contention. But as soon as he turned up in 2021 and there was a sniff of a championship, there he was. There was never any doubt that he wasn't going to be ready for that. Whereas you're telling me that because this is Lando's first ever championship, I have to make excuses for the fact that he's not been in that scenario before. Why?
I think, listen, I think Max is a generational talent, and so too is Sir Lewis, and it's hard. Anybody that goes up against them in a compare the market contest, 9 times out of 10, he's always going to come out on the losing side. Baxley, let me pitch the question at you this way, though. So I went a bit forensic. I listened to the driver's press conference, the pre-Las Vegas conference, the FIA one, and I was dissecting for Lando's words. There's something in his words. Baxley, what do you make of these comments? He was asked, Brazil ended in disappointment, but what's your mindset going into the Las Vegas Grand Prix? Baxley, Lando Norris squirmed in his seat before he said this. I had a tough week because things didn't go our way, but it doesn't change my approach. My approach has been the right approach the last few weekends. The last few weekends I've been performing well. I've been doing my job from my side. Baxley, I'm not going to change anything to that. So you respond how?
Well, it's not like he'd won every single Grand Prix up until that point, was it? And there's a reason why the championship is gone, essentially. Yeah, he had golden opportunities to take advantage of the car advantage he has. Austin being one, Mexico being another. That I think beating Carlos Sainz that weekend I think would have been pretty difficult. He had, and Brazil is the big one. Like Brazil was one of those weekends for me, and you see it with drivers when you put them under the microscope of title pressure, and when it's do or die in that moment. You see a driver come to the fore, and you see their strengths, and you can form the opinion of them whether you think they're championship caliber, whether they can really handle that knife edge pressure. Yeah, Lewis for me, it was Fuji '07. When you think in those conditions as a rookie, and you go and do drive like that, okay, this kid's going to be a world champion. Max Verstappen for me, it was Kota 21 when you got Lewis Hamilton in a really fast Mercedes bearing down on him, and he holds him off and he does it under the pressure of trying to win his first world title.
Mate.
Okay, he's yeah, great. Lando Norris had an opportunity to put serious dents into Max's title lead, and he basically needed a pass from his teammate in the sprint, lost the lead to George Russell again off the start, lost P1 off the start again, didn't even look close to getting close near George. Now, that's testament to how well George drove in that first stint. But he needed to be away and gone up the road. And yet we had 2 safety car restarts and he made mistakes every time. And that told me that when the pressure is on, I'm not sure this kid's up to it. And when I make a judgment on a driver like that, bar one instance, I've been right every single time where I'm just like, yeah, no, you haven't got it. The only person that has ever proved me wrong was Nico Rosberg.
Oof.
But Nico had to go to such an extent to prove me and other doubters wrong that it essentially destroyed him and ended his career. Yes, he walked away with a championship, but it literally ended his career. That's how far deep he had to go in order to change that assessment.
Plus a couple of dodgy Mercedes engines.
Well, we won't talk about that, but
Uh,
it wasn't just those, was it? It was the level of performance he was going to just to give himself a chance of beating Lewis. And the race he changed my mind was the Japanese Grand Prix after Malaysia, where he won that race and really just went, I'm going to be world champion this year. And it was like, okay, fair play. You proved me wrong.
I think I'm being a bit harsh on Lando. I subscribe to the thesis that you've just poo-pooed, Chez, that this is okay. So it's his 6th season. It's been around a while, but sometimes you need to be in and around the circumstance to kind of learn. I don't think. Listen, not all drivers can be Max Verstappen, that when they get their first bite of their cherry, as he did in 2021, rub up favourably against Lewis Hamilton. That's not. He's the exception that proves the rule. And I think Lando, I don't want to, as disparagingly as I've spoken about Lando over the past few weeks and his proclivity towards making mistakes of the unforced error, of the unforced variety, even not unlike one Charles Leclerc, aka modern day Jean Alesi. I think he can improve. I think he can improve just as has done Charles Leclerc. I think he'll kick on next year. I think he will improve and he'll normalise for some of these mistakes, because I don't think he's making mistakes like Charles has done, as an example. He hasn't found his way into the barrel, though he very nearly tried, didn't he, at bloody, was it Baku or Singapore? Like, he tried his best, and I just think he'll I'm backing him, chaps. He's a brilliant driver. Sick race car for days, pace in absolute terms. I think he'll make tweaks. True or false?
What if it's too late though? What if he turns up in 2025 and this was his chance and he fluffed it?
No, it might be. It might be. As it might be too late for Charles Leclerc. Please see 2022. There's no way of telling, Shez, do you know what I mean? The windows of opportunity open and close very quickly in F1. Go on, Baxter.
I just wanted to push back because I don't think the Lando Max comparison is fair in terms of giving them time to adjust. And like, Max had been in around the front of the grid ever since he went to Red Bull. He'd been picking up, a couple of wins here or there, there or there. Lando came into the season without a win. So he's gone from perennial midfielder to challenging for wins last season to then all of a sudden, okay, you've just won your first race, now go win a championship. That's like only Lewis has done that, really. And he got that opportunity because he was in the fastest car, whereas Lando has had to go from I'm chasing a race win to, oh god, I'm chasing a championship. That's a massive shift over a very short amount of time. Whereas Max had time to build up and acclimatise, get the team around him, get them absolutely rock solid. So when they had the opportunity to challenge Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton, they were ready. McLaren, I don't think were. Lando, I don't think was ready. That's why I don't think the comparison is as fair, because Max had experienced that front running pressure. Lando's never really had it until probably back end last year, but this year. Whereas Max had years of it to prepare and be ready for the real pressure when it comes on.
And on that bombshell, Sir Baxter, we have rounded 4th base. You guys have been legends. That has been Shazinho of the Tired GP podcast. That has been Baxter B of Baxter B F1. I, of course, have been Cameron CC. If you're watching this on the YouTubes, like and comment. If you're listening on a podcasting platform, follow and 5 stars. Between now and next time, as always, remember to look but never stare.